Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Monday everybody. It's been a cold weekend in northern China, and it looks to be another cold week ahead. On Sunday, yesterday, the state broadcaster said that temperatures in parts of the country, including the provinces of Shanxi, Hebei, and Liaoning, hit their lowest levels since records began. The city of Yichun in Heilongjiang hit a new record of minus 47.9 degrees Celsius, or minus 54.2 degrees Fahrenheit. That's cold. Over the weekend, the average high temperature in the capital, Beijing, plummeted to about minus 9 degrees Celsius or 15 degrees Fahrenheit. The cold snap, which grounded thousands of planes, caused a subway collision in the capital and has caused much damage in the north, has been so unusually intense that on Friday, General Secretary Xi Jinping called for an all-out emergency response. The National Disaster Prevention Body issued a directive to local authorities to prepare emergency plans with a special focus on the storage of thermal coal. The Agricultural Ministry launched an emergency response as well. For viewers in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope you stay warm, safe, and healthy this week. Let's move into the economy. A hot topic recently has been increasing focus on China's shifting of domestic investment out of the property sector and into its manufacturing industry and its trade implications. This chart from the Atlantic Council last week has been making the rounds. Niels Graham, a China analyst at the Atlantic Council, observed that the shift in China's domestic financing towards manufacturing is dramatic, expressing, quote, "This is a deep structural transition. The shift is generating serious fears of overcapacity and will likely accelerate the fractionalization of the global trading system as countries move to protect their own industry." End quote. Graham showed that Chinese banks extended nearly $700 billion in new loans to industry in Q3 alone. This has important trade implications. Becky Liu, head of China macro strategy at Standard Chartered plc, in a note expressed, quote, "This change of resources to the manufacturing sector, the industrial sector, has indeed led to a gain of competitiveness of higher value-added goods." End quote. This competitiveness has resulted in China's surplus in manufactured products hitting all-time highs in recent years, which has very deep international political implications. Quote, "Among other things, such a shift will require the Chinese trading partners accommodate Chinese growth strategies by agreeing to reduce the share of manufacturing in their own economies, something I think very few will be willing to do. On the contrary, they are likely to implement their own policies to protect and boost manufacturing. But arithmetic is arithmetic. It is impossible for everyone to maintain or increase its manufacturing share without a commensurate increase in manufacturing consumption. The result will be that those economies who are slowest to take action will see the most rapid decline in their manufacturing. That is why I think a worsening of global trade tensions is almost inevitable. Expect tempers to get much worse in the next 3 to 5 years." End quote. The danger, of course, is another wave of protectionist reaction. Meanwhile, and on a similar note, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, the country's top science academy, in a new report warns of a so-called middle technology trap if China does not open its economy and technology up more to the world. A middle technology trap is when developing countries benefit from industrial transfers due to their low-cost advantages, but then fall into stagnation when that advantage fades away. The report argues, quote, "The countries that develop later usually have difficulties in industrial upgrading and transitioning to high-income countries because they lack original technological advances after technology importation, imitation, absorption, and tracking." End quote. The warning comes as the US-China technology war deepens and major global markets like the US and the EU de-risk their systems from China and diversify supply chains away. The report observes that China's manufacturing added value accounted for nearly 30% globally. Quote, China's manufacturing sector is still in the downstream of the global value chain, and it faces a risk of being hamstrung at the low and mid-end by developed countries such as the United States, Germany, and Japan." End quote. The report calls for the opening up of the country to global talent and reforms to the enterprise system so that state-owned firms and large private companies can share resources and be treated equally. In the new era of the economy being so closely linked to national security, as we have examined over the last few weeks, it remains to be seen whether such reforms are even possible. We continue with the economy, but first, if you're enjoying today's episode, if you're getting some value from this episode, it is a huge help if you like and subscribe to China Update. It's just 2 quick clicks of the mouse, but it is the best way for the channel to grow and be shown to new people. If you want to help keep the channel financially sustainable, open and free to all 6 days a week, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. It's just me making these episodes, and the channel relies primarily on subscriber support to keep going. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. One more quick economic update. US-based Bloomberg Economics published an excellent piece today called "China's Real Estate Meltdown is Battering Middle-Class Wealth," which argues that, well, China's real estate meltdown is battering middle-class wealth. The piece looks at the fortunes of several middle-class Chinese this year, reminding us of the people behind the numbers which we follow week to week. One individual is Thomas Zhou, a 40-year-old financial worker from Shanghai. Thomas has seen his stock investments drop 30% this year, his salary package plunge 30% this year, and investment in property down 20% this year. The anxious Zhou tells the outlet, quote, "It's just heartbreaking. The only thing that still keeps me going is the thought of keeping my job so that I can support my family." End quote. The US-based Bloomberg Economics writes that at the heart of the decline in family wealth is China's real estate crisis, which is having a pervasive effect on a society where 70% of family assets is tied up in property. Every 5% decline in home prices, Bloomberg Economics argues, will wipe out 19 trillion yuan, $2.7 trillion in household wealth. Eric Zhu, an economist with Bloomberg Economics, argues, quote, "It might just be the beginning of more wealth losses in coming years. Unless there is a big bull market, small gains in financial wealth are unlikely to offset losses in housing wealth." End quote. As regular viewers know, Chinese shares have not been doing well this year either, underperforming emerging market peers with the widest margin since at least 1998 earlier this month. Bloomberg Economics writes that while China's official data show just a mild drop in its existing home prices, evidence from property agents and private data providers indicate declines of at least 15% in prime areas in the biggest cities. Quote, "The housing sector's value may shrink to about 16% of China's gross domestic product by 2026 from around 20% of GDP currently. This would put about 5 million people, or about 1% of the urban workforce, at the risk of unemployment or reduced incomes." End quote. Next up, and finally for today, the Ministry of Civil Affairs has released a report titled "Communique on the Development of the National Cause of Aging," which has observed, officially, nearly 20% of the PRC's population, 270 million people, are now over the age of 60. According to the report, the country's elderly population aged 65 and over reached 209.78 million in 2022, accounting for almost 15% of the total population, while the national dependency ratio of the elderly population aged 65 and above hit 21.8%. This means that every 5 people of employable age need to provide care for just over 1 old-aged person. Back in 2020, the old age dependency ratio was 12.7%, or just under 1 old-aged person for 8 people of employable age. Incredibly, when including minors under 15 years of age, the dependency ratio jumped to 46.7% last year. 1 person of employable age to every 2 non-working peoples. Yuan Xin, a professor at the Institute of Population and Development at Nankai University's School of Economics, told state media over the weekend that it is expected that the size of the elderly population will reach a peak of over 500 million people, 520 million, by 2054, expressing to state-run Global Times, quote, China's aging rate is faster than that of 15 countries with more than 100 million people in the world. One of the reasons is the drop in the fertility rate. End quote. According to the China Population and Development Research Center, China's fertility rate is estimated to have dropped to a record low of 1.09 in 2022. As the saying goes, demographics is destiny. Well, judging by these numbers, China's destiny has come. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a good Monday. Have a productive week ahead, and I will see you all tomorrow.